Look at some of these potential 2025 unrestricted free agents. Among Canadian team players, Brock Besser, Mitch Marner, Linus Ullmark, Nick Ehlers, Claude Giroux, they could all be available. The defending Cup champion Panthers have 3 names on the list: Carter Verhaeghe, Aaron Ekblad, and Sam Bennett.
Right on.
You know, and my wife, who's such a big fan of Pierre LeBrun, said, why isn't Pierre featured more in the opening intro of Right On, Right On? He is. He's on my T-shirt. There's a giant picture of Pierre's head on my T-shirt. So just look closely, folks. These Easter eggs are a big part of watching this program. Here's Pierre LeBrun for his weekly segment. And Pierre, you reported on Insider Trading this week that Igor Shesterkin is, or should I say his agents, as you wrote in The Athletic, are very much looking to set a new bar in terms of goalie salaries in the NHL. What can you tell us?
First of all, can I just mention that when you wore that T-shirt with my face on it at trade deadline that year, you almost ended trade deadline. I mean that was a big risk that you took. But anyway, let's not. I still have PTSD from that. Listen, this Shesterkin negotiation is one of the most fascinating in years for me. And you know, I delved into it in my piece in The Athletic. And the reason is the goaltending position has been under duress financially and in some ways philosophically from NHL front offices over the last several years. You know, it started with the sports science of, you know, number one goalie shouldn't play more than 55 or 58 games, right? And now there's more of a sharing of the net. And then there's a school of thought from a lot of front offices that say that the goaltending position in today's game is the most difficult to predict a repeatable outcome, a repeatable performance, that the goalie performances come in and out, and so you shouldn't allocate quite as many cap dollars to that position. And listen, you can certainly make an argument for a lot of those things, but Igor Shesterkin and his agents are saying .928 career playoff save percentage, 28 years old, UFA in a year, whatever. They're going for it, and they're going to get it. And the question is whether they're going to get it with the Rangers or elsewhere, but there's no doubt in my mind he is going to be a double-digit paid goalie. There hasn't been one since Sergei Bobrovsky got his $10 million a year. Carey Price has the all-time record at $10.5 million a year. And the Rangers have communicated, our understanding is, to Shesterkin and his camp that they're willing to pay him more than that $10.5 million from Carey Price. So why isn't it done as we speak? And I can tell you that I checked in with it again, you know, on Wednesday evening, and it was status quo in that negotiation. So what's the number that ends this in terms of getting an extension in front of what most people believe is the best goalie in the world? Is it 11.5? Is it 12? Is it 12.5? Is it more? And at one point, do the Rangers think it's just too much? Hard to say, but it's fascinating because this isn't just about the New York Rangers and their superstar goalie. I think it's about the goalie position in general. It's the goalies. I think it's Shesterkin trying to put the goalies back on track financially. And there's a few interested goalies watching this negotiation play out.
Out of the names we just showed our viewers, Pierre, all those potential unrestricted free agents in 2025, is there an expectation from you that one or maybe more of them could sign a deal before the end of the season?
Yeah, listen, I know from having talked to Panthers GM Bill Zito last week, I mean, he was careful with what he said, but he did say that he has a plan that would see him be able to sign all 3 of those guys that you mentioned earlier in terms of Bennett, Ekblad, and Verhaeghe. I don't know if he's going to be able to pull it off, but he says that he has a plan where, you know, obviously if they're willing to take less to stay, then he can get that done. So that would be quite the hat trick. I think it's more probable he gets 2 out of 3 done, but those discussions are happening right now, so I would keep an eye on that. Not a lot of guys with their hand up saying, get me out of this Cup champion roster, right? It's a pretty fun place to be and a fun place to play. And we'll see, you know, on some of those other guys. I mean, obviously with Mitch Marner, you guys have talked about him, right, on your show?
Once in a while we mention him, Pierre. It's rare, but once in a while we throw him in.
Yeah. Listen, it wouldn't surprise me at some point in time if he signed. I think his camp, they just want to get the year going and see where it goes. But it wouldn't shock me if he ends up signing during the season here. I just think, regardless of what people feel about his playoff performance, how do you replace him is what it comes down to. Just like the Rangers are saying, how do we replace Shesterkin? I mean, that's the question you have to answer.
Pierre, I know that you, and maybe more than you, our friend James Duthie would love all those names to hit July 1st, 2025, and you guys just have the most exciting free agent frenzy day of all time. But that's unlikely to happen. But someone's got to hit free agency, don't they? Is there a name on that list that jumps out at you that will almost for sure hit free agency?
I would say if I'm going to bet on it, which of course I would not, but if I was, Jay, I would say Nikolai Ehlers from the Winnipeg Jets. His name was involved in some serious trade discussions this past offseason. Obviously, it didn't materialize in a trade, but we know that his name was involved in some trade talks that went pretty deep. Again, that's normal. I mean, he's got a year left on his deal. The Jets haven't signed him to an extension, so it's normal to see, when teams call to see what he could fetch. And the thing about the Jets is they've done such a good job the last couple of years of either keeping assets or trading assets, but when they're trading assets, they're not trading them for futures. They're trying to keep this team in the fight. And think of the Dubois deal and what a magnificent deal that turned out to be for Winnipeg. So I think if Ehlers is dealt before the trade deadline March 7th, I don't think it can be a futures deal, even though he's a rental. I think that they have to try and help their team. And that's why it's possible he doesn't get dealt. That if he walks out the door next July 1st, so be it. They still get a year under him. They're still trying to win and go deep in the playoffs, and that's okay. That's cap room created. But I just don't sense any positive signs to this point regarding him wanting to sign an extension. But that could change. We'll see.
Pierre, not many RFAs left to sign, but there is a big name out there, and it's Jeremy Swayman. And you talked about it in your article this week in The Athletic. It's not the money, or it is the money. It's not the term, because they're happy with term. They both want to go long term. The Bruins want to go long term, as you reported. Yeah. Jeremy Swayman wants to go long term, but it's all about the money at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think kind of like Shesterkin, except he's in a different leverage position. He's not UFA in a year. He's RFA right now, so CBA-wise, not quite the same leverage as Shesterkin has, but similar philosophy that you pick up from that negotiation, which is, Jeremy Swayman believes he should get paid. Him and his agent aren't terribly swayed by the fact that other goalies, the comps are a bit lower, because the salary cap has gone up and will continue to go up. And by the way, that's a factor in the Shesterkin negotiation as well, that the cap will continue to go up now for years, and it's about the percentage of the cap. And I know a lot of people, when they saw the Draisaitl extension, were like, whoa, that's a number. It's not going to look like that big a number in about a year and a half, Jay. Like salaries are about to escalate here in a manner in which we didn't see for a number of years during the pandemic. And I think Swayman's camp believes he should be part of that, despite, playing at a position, like I said, that hasn't seen that same type of growth. And the other thing with Swayman, I checked in on that negotiation as well, on Wednesday evening, Jay, and status quo was the answer I got. He's pretty headstrong. And, the idea that he's going to cave in here, we'll see. I see him really digging in here and trying to get what he feels is fair. So it'll be interesting to see where it lands.
Pierre, I don't need to tell you the impact that the TSN Top 50 Players list is having around the National Hockey League. And we have revealed numbers 30 through 20 on Wednesday. Darren Dreger didn't even want to answer a question about this. He made it very clear he does not vote on this. He was very adamant about that. My question for you is, do you vote on this list, Pierre? And do you think reigning Vezina winner Connor Hellebuyck is too low or too high, or maybe just right at number 22?
Right. I don't vote on it either. I don't know. I feel like the game analysts are the people that should vote on this, not the insiders. But, Hellebuyck's a two-time Vezina Trophy winner. And if Shesterkin is arguably considered by most managers as the best goalie in the world, a lot of people have Hellebuyck pretty close to two. It's like Hellebuyck, Saros, Sorokin, Vasilevsky. He's right in that mix. So because of that, I think 22 is about right. And again, goalies are getting pushed down a bit in terms of the way people view the position and view the predictability of the position. But arguably, he's been the most consistent goalie of the last several years, and I think that's about right.
Okay. Gary Bettman was quoted this week. We're going to finish with this. He said rumors of the NHL starting the process of expanding to 34 teams were, in Gary's words, categorically wrong. And yet you hear so much about potential expansion, and you hear so much about Houston, and you hear so much about Atlanta for a third time.
Okay.
Let's talk about it, Pierre. Your thoughts on a timeline for expansion?
Yeah, let me explain what I think is going on, and it's that I think people are getting tripped up in what they think is being reported or what Gary Bettman himself means when he says things. Expansion is coming eventually, and Gary Bettman himself isn't denying that. What he's saying is, when he's asked about it, is that the process has not officially commenced. They haven't gone to the executive committee or the board of governors, the owners, and said, do we have a green light to start this process? That has not happened. So that is accurate when Bettman says we're not there yet. But it doesn't mean that the speculation that you're hearing doesn't have legs to it. This league is eventually expanding.
Yeah.
That's just a fact, okay? It's just a question of when. Now, what's going to happen is next week, there's a quick 3-hour Board of Governors meeting in New York. They always have this one right on the eve of the season. I'm actually going to it. I don't think they'll allow me inside the meeting, Jay, but I'll be outside the doors. And at that meeting, my understanding is that Bettman or Bill Daly will update the owners and the Board of Governors on the expressions of interest from the cities that would like to land an NHL team, Atlanta, Houston, etc. And of course, reiterate to probably everyone in the room that eventually the league wants to put a team back in Arizona in some shape or other. That's going to happen next week at the Board of Governors. What's not going to happen is them literally going to the owners and saying, do we have the green light to start the process? They're just not ready yet. Does it happen at the December big meeting where they meet for a couple of days in Florida? That's usually the time when big things get announced when it comes to franchises and potential expansion. I'm not guaranteeing it'll happen, but I'm telling you that that would be the earliest that you would hear that kind of news formally announced would be at the December Board of Governors meeting.
Finally, as I let you go, I'm not guaranteeing a Cowboys win Thursday night over the Giants on Thursday Night Football, but are you, Pierre LeBrun, guaranteeing a Cowboys victory? Will they bounce back against their NFC East rivals?
They will. It's going to be close. It's going to be close because they can't stop the run. But that fourth quarter comeback, and I saw your hit with Luke on Sunday night after the Cowboys game, and I thought it was fair. The Cowboys can't stop the run. But I will say this, and maybe this, makes me sound like a naive, crazy Cowboys fan, but they could have easily given up in that game. They were so embarrassed through 3 quarters by Baltimore, and they rallied like crazy in that fourth quarter, and led by Dak Prescott. I think that might have been their TSN turning point for the season.
That's why this guy's the best. He's incorporating classic TSN lines as well. That's why we have him on every week. He's Pierre LeBrun. All the best to your Cowboys, and we'll chat with you next week, Pierre.
Right on, right on. Thanks, Jay.